This is Suit Up Sports.
Suit Up Sports.
Where opinions are as sharp as a tailored suit. No fluff, no gimmicks, just unfiltered, hard-hitting takes on sports and a whole lot more. It's time to suit up. Now here's your host, DJ the Suit Stout.
Welcome to Suit Up Sports. I'm DJ the Suit Stout, along with my boy Mark Yarbro, filling in for Frank Garcia. Mark, how you doing?
Good, man. I just wish there was something going on in the world of sports we could talk about.
Me
today.
too. It's been what a dead weekend.
Yeah.
You know, no good storylines.
No, nothing.
None of our. I tell you, first of all, it's first weekend this year that all three of my teams won: Notre Dame, the Giants, and the Panthers. So
You got to be I'm feeling real good today.
I'm feeling good.
Yeah.
And I took a little boys trip this week. I left on Thursday morning, and myself and my buddy Kevin flew to Quakertown, Pennsylvania to meet up with his cousin and his best buddy that he grew up with. We drove on Thursday from Quakertown to the Meadowlands, and they're big Eagles fans. So went to the Giants-Eagles game on Thursday night. My first time in that new stadium. I'd been at the old Meadowlands, but I had not been in the new one. Went with 3 Eagle fans. So the whole way there, they're just wearing me out about how we're going to get our butts whooped, fly, Eagle fly, all that crap.
Well, I hope they're not. If they're Philly fans, they really had a bad night with the Phillies losing and then the Eagles.
They sure did. They we in the parking lot where we were tailgating, there was a lot of Philly fans, and they had the TVs up so they could watch the Phillies. Yeah. And then we go in, and I never anticipated that I would be the one on the ride home getting to talk a lot of crap. Right. And Giants obviously take care of business, and Skattebo and Jaxson Dart just have that city.
You got something, man. They got something there.
If Dart can stay healthy and stop acting like he's Skattebo, then I think they've got something there. And so we leave there and we go to a casino outside of Quakertown. My luck that I must have wasted it all on the Giants because the casino took all my money.
Oh man!
And then Saturday morning, I had never been to Happy Valley to see Penn State play.
Oh.
So we drove 3 hours from Quakertown to Happy Valley to see Penn State play Northwestern, which again ended up being a huge story this weekend because Northwestern took it to them, and
James Franklin gets fired yesterday.
James Franklin gets fired, which I tell you, by halftime of that game, and I was sitting with all these Penn State guys that have been going to these games forever. By halftime of that game, I knew there was no way they weren't firing him.
Right.
I mean, these fans had seen enough, and coming off the loss to UCLA, not even really the Oregon one. So anyway, leave that game, come back home, have a good time, go to another casino. That didn't do me well either. Flying home yesterday morning, get to the airport at 7:15 in the morning, get back early. I was supposed to go to the Panther game yesterday. Flight keeps getting delayed. We get on the plane, sit there an hour, and they say it's mechanical issues, flight canceled.
Oh.
So then we had to rent a car and drive from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania to Baltimore, and then get in a plane on Baltimore at 3:30 in the afternoon. Luckily, I watched the Panther game on my phone and got back home last night about 6 o'clock. But
goodness gracious.
It was yesterday.
That's a trip right there.
Thank God for technology because I was able to watch all the games I wanted to watch. Mainly the Panther game. And Panthers going into this game were a 3-point underdog to the Cowboys. The Cowboys offense had been clicking on all cylinders, even without CeeDee Lamb. They were coming off a whooping of the Jets, who we'll talk about in a minute because that's our next opponent. But the Panthers come in, and one of the things that Frank and I and you and I have talked about this year when it comes to the Panthers is the one thing that seems to hurt this team is the word consistency.
Yep.
Bryce is not consistent. The defense is not consistent. The running game not consistent.
Yep.
The play calling, all those things. And after our game last week, I know when Frank and I talked, I said, I felt like in the second half, we found some consistency. Maybe Evero on defense found a way to slow a tight end down a little bit more which they did.
Well, sorry to interrupt you, but I felt like had the Dolphins kept going to Darren Waller last week, I don't know how they lose that game. The Panthers had no answer for him. So my fear yesterday was, Jake Ferguson's going to come in here and kind of do the same thing.
But in the second half, Evero made some adjustments where it seemed that he realized that our front four was taking care of the run game, so he was able to let the linebackers drop off a little, and Waller didn't do as much in the second half. And I hope that would carry over to this game. We saw Rico Dowdle last week against the Dolphins have just an unbelievable game, and we hoped that that would continue and run the ball off the right side where we seem to be much stronger. Bryce Young in the second half against Miami had a really good second half. So again, as Panther fans who've watched this team for the last few years, we're totally used to seeing glimpses of that, but not consistency.
Right.
Yesterday, I thought the team put together by far its best, full game of football. There's still some things that need to be worked out and some things that we'll talk about that I think, are still some issues. But Dowdle was unbelievable again. The guy runs hard. His vision and how quick he seems to be able to make an assessment of where he needs to go and then go.
Yeah, and he had no negative runs yesterday. Not zero or it was all positive yardage. And this is leading up to this game. And DJ, this. He was talking a pretty good game. Like,
he was.
They better buckle up. He knew what was ahead of him. He backed it up. It's one thing to talk it, but to go out there and back it up and do even better than you did last week. As far as he had 239 yesterday for total yards. He had 234 last week against the Dolphins. So, unbelievable.
And look, the offensive line banged up without our right tackle, without our right guard, and we say without our center, but Mays should have been the center from day one. I think we've all figured that out now. But still, with three non-starters on the offensive line, they got it done again. They're moving piles, and the running game right now seems to be exactly where Dave Canales would have hoped it would be. It'll be interesting to see when Chuba comes back, how they work him into the mix.
Oh yeah, because I already saw last night people on X saying, "Well, we could probably move Chuba now."
Yeah.
I'm like, I would slow that roll a little bit. Etienne has not proven anything yet in the backfield.
No,
let's. That's a nice problem to have if you're Dave Canales. And look. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think we have seen a 2 running back system work here before. So
I agree with you. And I will say this when it comes to the running backs, I don't see how Dowdle does not continue to at least be the number one right now.
Yeah, I don't know how you remove him. Now.
Just the way that he's running and catching the ball. He had a 36-yard touchdown yesterday. But I don't see how you take him out of being the number one. But there were times yesterday, especially in the second half, where he looked to me like he was a little gassed. Now, he would come back 2 plays later and break off a 10-yard run, but I think that's where it'd be perfect to have a guy like Chuba, who now everybody loves Chuba. Everybody knows how hard he works. So I'm not saying this is going to motivate him, because he's already a motivated player.
Sure.
But I know, just being an athlete and a competitor as you do myself, when somebody comes in and takes your spot due to injury or whatever the reason, and they succeed, when you get back in there, you are going to crank it up a couple notches. So I think you're totally right that this is a very good problem for Canales to have. And so it'll be interesting to see what they do. And look, the Jets defense, when we play, we'll talk about the Jets matchup next week. And the one thing we can say about the Jets is they've got a good defense. Their defense yesterday against Denver played well. They didn't play well against the Cowboys, obviously, but they are a pretty good defense if there's one thing that they hang their hat on. So having a great running game with 2 guys is going to be helpful.
And there was one time yesterday where it would have been nice to have an option of maybe having either Chuba or Rico out on the field. There was a 3rd and 2. I think it might have been the first drive of the game or one of the first drives. And for some reason, Dave Canales thought it'd be a good idea to give the ball to DJ Dallas.
I don't know what that was about.
What are you doing? What in the world are you doing? That was really my only, other than the clock management stuff. Again, I know we can probably get into that. That was really,
trust me, we will. That's one of the things.
The only other thing yesterday that I just questioned Canales, like, what are you doing here? Yeah, you're out thinking yourself. But other than that, man, that was really another good performance. And you're right. We have talked about stacking these performances together.
Yep.
And they're starting to do that. And they have the opportunity, DJ, to do it again Sunday against a Jets team that is absolutely reeling right now. I'll be shocked with you. I checked before the show. Jets are a 1.5 point favorite, which I'm shocked at. I just, maybe I shouldn't be, because it's the Panthers.
Well, normally being at home,
gets you 3 points,
3 points, right?
Yeah.
So I think the fact they cut it to 1.5 shows you what they think of the Jets, and maybe a little bit more about, are people starting to buy into the fact the Panthers have won 3 or 4 games. This, and again, I want to finish this game because I do want to talk about the game, because it scares the hell out of me, and I'll tell you why in a minute. But a few other things I did want to touch base with the Panthers, because I want to give credit where credit's due. Bryce Young, 17 or 25, 199 yards, 3 touchdowns. He had the 1 interception that wasn't his fault. Hit Tet right in the hands. And as good as Tet has been, it seems that there's at least 1 or 2 times a game where he has a bad drop.
That was Greg Olson's fault, by the way, because he had just bragged on him.
Yeah.
And then immediately right after that, ball goes off his hand and gets picked. So I blame Greg on that.
And
one.
the defense did their best to try to hold him there, but they get 7 out of it. But listen to this stat here that I thought was interesting. When trailing against the Cowboys yesterday, Bryce Young was 10 of 10 for 125 yards, 3 touchdowns with 158.3 pass rating. That's getting it done.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
I mean, that's getting it done. And another stat that I thought was interesting. Bryce Young has won 9 games at Bank of America Stadium, and in 8 of those games, they've been on a comeback drive, last drive of the game. So we can sit here and look at Bryce, and people can say, "Oh, he's too small." And trust me, I've complained about his ball security. Drives me crazy. The fumbles. I thought yesterday on that second touchdown to Ted, it looked like when Dowdle missed the block, and it looked like he almost dropped the ball again, but he got enough hand on it to zip it to Ted. But Bryce and this offense in particular seems to be figuring out kind of who they are now. And it's going to be really interesting because not only does Chuba Hubbard come back this week, we're probably going to get Jalen Coker back this week, and we're probably going to get Sanders back this week. So we're adding 3 weapons to an offense that is clicking on all cylinders right now.
And the thing that has impressed me with Bryce the last couple of weeks is there were a couple of big throws he made against the Dolphins last week, and then yesterday on that last drive, I think it was the game-winning drive where they kicked the field goal. There was a 4th down.
Yep.
And he hit Hunter Renfrow for a big throw. And he's making some big throws. And
that was a tough throw. I mean, that was a small window that he zipped it in. Whenever I watched the replay, because live it scared the hell out of me because I thought the linebacker had a chance to get it.
Yep.
When you watch the replay, you just see that Bryce zipped it in perfectly, and Renfrow, that was his only target of the day, I believe. But it was
a big one.
It was a huge one, and it'll be interesting to see what they do with Renfrow this week because with Jalen Coker coming back, you've got a couple choices. Do you put Tremaine on the inactive list? I don't know, man. He contributes on special teams.
Yep.
Renfrow can return punts as we said. Well, actually, the Panthers can't return punts. Period.
You just want him to catch the ball. Point, yeah.
But it'll be interesting to see what moves they make. They're obviously Dallas, the running back. DJ Dallas is going to be.
I don't need to see him run the ball anymore.
No, he'll be either cut or back on an active list. A couple other guys I want to talk about in the Panther game yesterday that I was really impressed with, and I think that we need to give a little credit to our kicker. And normally we don't talk a lot of kickers, but Fitzgerald, not only was he 3 for 3, not only did he kick the game-winning field goal. This kid had, won the job in training camp, and it was an open competition. He comes in after not missing a field goal last year in college, All-American at Florida State. And this kid, when you look at what he's done from a field goal extra point standpoint, I think he's missed 1 extra point against the Patriots. But even on his kickoff, the way that he has
the dirty balls
that he drops in there, the kid's become a weapon. And I don't feel as nervous now when he goes out there. When he went out there for the game-winning field goal, I'm on a plane and I'm streaming it, and I'm like, all right, DJ, if he misses this, do not yell out, in front of the whole plane and scare the hell out of the old lady next to me. But I was like, he's gonna make this. This kid's got moxie, and he seems like a great guy. And you saw that by the way the players, obviously they're gonna go celebrate with him. But even when he was on the sideline, you saw a lot of the big guys on the team, the Derek Browns, these guys go up there and congratulate him. So I wanted to give him a little credit. And then let's talk about the Panthers defense.
Yes.
Because
in a positive manner. Usually we're talking Panther defense. It's not
defensive.
Do we have to talk about it? But
I mean, listen, the Panthers defense now in the last 2 games against 2 teams that can run the ball, a chain and Dallas, Williams is averaging over 5 yards a carry. The Panthers in the last 2 games have allowed 50 yards total rushing.
Yep.
Total. And, Dan Morgan, when he traded Brian Burns to the Giants, who's having like a defensive player of the year type year, I totally was with when they traded him because I felt we needed the money to do other things with.
Yep.
He took the money and he fixed what had been a putrid offensive line for years, and he fixed it. And then this offseason, he went after the defensive line, and he brought in run stoppers like Bobby Brown. He brought in Turk Wharton, who, the 2 games he has played, he's made a difference.
Derek Brown's back. It's almost like acquiring somebody.
Which is the biggest one because Derek Brown, not only does he look like the player he was before he got hurt, I think he even looks better. And the reason I think that is a couple things. Number one, I think he's become more of a leader on the defense.
Yeah, more vocal.
If you remember, Mark, and tell me if I'm wrong, before he got hurt, look, he set example by playing. He had over 100 tackles as a DT, which I think is still an NFL record.
Yes.
But now when you hear him talk, you can tell that he has accepted the role of being the leader on that defense, and he seems to be doing more interviews. He seems to be talking to his teammates more. And then one of the things that I love that he did last week, evidently he went to the coaches and said, look, put me in on more pass rush downs. I can get to the quarterback.
Yep.
And so you saw him yesterday on a couple 3rd and 5s, 3rd and 6s in the game, and throwing around guys like ragdolls. So, Derek Brown, you're right. I think that's the biggest acquisition. But this defensive line that Dan rebuilt in the offseason is stopping the run. And it's not just them. Obviously, Morrig at safety helps with that. I want to give Trevin Wallace and Roseboom credit because for the first few weeks of the season, we all talked about how it's probably the worst linebacker room in the league. What are they seeing in this? And Trevin Wallace, now he still will have that one bonehead play. He let Ferguson go right by him on that touchdown down the seam. But he also made a couple good plays in pass coverages. He made a couple good sticks in the backfield. He seems to be getting his feet under him as well. Yeah,
look, there are still some issues on this defense, particularly the passing defense. And, Mike Jackson had a rough day yesterday against George Pickens.
He did.
But this run defense, I'm astounded at how good it's been lately. And it was so bad last year. And I know a big part of that was not having Derek Brown in there in the middle. But, man, having him back, you mentioned Bobby Brown had easily his best game yesterday. I thought he was all over the place. You mentioned the linebackers. Yeah, it's nice to finally see this team defensively be able to stop the run, because I don't care if you talk to Buck, you talk to any guy that's played the game, there is nothing more demoralizing than have the other guy just run all over you.
Yep.
And that's the way it was here last year.
Yep.
They just ran.
NFL worse in
they
history.
just ran over this defense.
Yeah.
And it kills you. It just deflates you to no end. So to know the fact that this team's now capable of going out there and stopping a run, and look, they're going to be tested again this coming week. Breece Hall, the one thing the Jets can do is run the football. Breece Hall is pretty good back. They may not be able to throw the ball. And if you're the Panthers, you've got to key in on Breece Hall and make Justin Fields beat you. But no, the run defense the last 2 weeks against, as you said, 2 really good backs in Achane and Devontae Williams, outstanding job.
Yeah, and if you take away the Etienne 80-yard run game one, they go to Arizona the following week, who had 3 good running backs at the time. Now they're banked up, but they had James Conner and they had Benson, not to mention Murray can run. They held them under 100 yards, and I think one of those was a 35-yard run by Kyler Murray. We felt like, we talked about that on the show. We felt that they were starting to figure that out. Now that they've got that where I think they're comfortable knowing that even with their front 4, they can stop the run. Now they got to figure out a way to get to the quarterback.
Yes,
because
that's still a problem.
Because you'd mentioned the pass defense. Mike Jackson did get Pickens warm out yesterday. But if you get to the quarterback, and they had a couple close calls yesterday with Dak, but you got to get to the quarterback. And Fields, like you said, not that he's going to throw the ball all over the field, but he can run and he's elusive. So,
he wasn't elusive yesterday, though. That's the thing. 9 sacks yesterday.
Yeah,
and the opportunity you would think is going to be there Sunday to finally maybe start getting home to the quarterback.
Yeah, he holds the ball too long. And whether it's because he takes him, I was watching some of the ESPN guys today just saying, it takes him too long to process where to go with the ball, which has been the knock on him since he's come out of college. But another thing on defense yesterday that impressed me, and I hope Evero, because one thing that I'll give Canales, and, during the season so far, you and I have talked about it, Frank and I have talked about it, is Bryce Young going to be the next quarterback? Is he our guy? Is Canales the coach that's going to lead this team for the next 10 years? And we don't know. We still don't know. But there was games that we went, he can't get the plays in on time.
Yeah.
Bryce, ball security. One thing about the coaching staff that I like and that I've seen in the last 2 weeks is the willingness to listen to your players. When Derek Brown says, I want to be in on passing downs, put me in, I'm the leader of that defense, and they're doing it, I think that's a check for
right.
When J.C. Horn yesterday on the last drive for Dallas goes over and says, put me on Pickens. And JC had two pass PI calls. I thought the first one was ridiculous. But nonetheless,
and that's the one they did pick it up. They ended up calling a roughing the passer, if you remember. But
where Rose Boone
they did figure out that it wasn't a flag on JC.
Exactly. And so you know what? And that leads to my question about the Jets is when JC Horn goes to them and says, put me on Pickens, he's killing us. And they do. And guess what? That last play, he wasn't open.
Yeah.
And Garrett Wilson, great receiver for the Jets. He's really the only receiver they have. Now, Mason Taylor, their rookie tight end, has been really good. But why not just and JC Horn has been on the record as saying, I'm totally fine shadowing the other team and traveling. Put his butt on Garrett Wilson and let the other guys take care of business.
That was the one thing that drove me crazy last year, is there were too many times, and we saw it when the Cowboys came here last year. JC wasn't on CeeDee Lamb.
Yep.
We saw too many times that he wasn't on the best receiver. And look, I think JC Horn's a good player. I don't know if he's a great player. I know Greg called him one of the elite corners. I don't know if I'd go that far, really, to be honest with you. But he's still your best corner.
Yep.
And your best corner should be on their best guy.
Yep.
So I that drove me crazy last year.
And you see other teams do that. You see Surtain on Denver.
Sure.
They put him on the back.
Yeah.
I mean, so I hope that JC Horn, who's again been on record as saying he's willing to do it, he comes to the coach, says, put me on him. They put him on him. Let's take that into the Jet game. Let's take Wilson out of the game by putting Horn on him, or at least, like you said, if we don't take him out of the game, it's definitely going to be our best guy on him.
Yeah.
And then make Lazard beat us. Make some of these other guys beat us.
Yeah.
And see if we can increase the pressure on the quarterback. Scorton yesterday, I felt, and Michael Kay from the Charlotte Observer, I was following the game. His tweets during the game even said that Scorton got held egregiously 3 times without getting calls. But I like the way he's playing. We saw Prince Leeman make a great stop in the backfield, and he was in on first and second down more than he has been on those. So I just see a coaching staff that are starting to trust certain players, starting to listen to some of the player input and figuring it out. Now, what scares the hell out of me about all this is the fact that the Jets are 0-6.
Yep.
They've been in some ball games. I mean, they were in the game against Denver yesterday, and Denver, in my opinion, has the best defense in the league. I don't even think it's close. I mean, those young defensive ends they have are beast. Their their linebackers, their corners. I think they got the best defense in the league. But the Jets played them tight. We saw the Jets almost pull one off at Tampa, and there's no doubt in my mind, and I would guess yours too, that Tampa is one of the top 3 teams in football right now.
Yeah,
because
Baker's playing at an MVP level.
Baker right now would be. He's
making
MVP.
Everybody look good. I mean, he was throwing yesterday to his 5th and 6th receivers and making them stars.
Exactly. And listen, they're banged up.
Yeah.
And all they do is keep winning.
Yep.
They were on their 3rd guard yesterday. They were on their 5th and 6th receivers yesterday. So Jets. We're a minute and a half away from beating them in Tampa.
Yep.
They were down to the wire against Denver. So, this isn't a team for being 0-6 that has folded up the tents and quit. They're going to be at home. They're under turmoil this week, which a lot of times is another reason.
That's dangerous.
But they are traveling back from London.
Yep.
And so what I'm saying is this is not going to be the Panthers. And I know the Panthers won't look at this. Well, at least I hope they don't. This isn't a give me. We're going to play the 0-6 Jets, and we're going to come out of there with a win, and we'll be above 500 for the first time in 5 years.
Yeah.
They better be ready for a game because the Jets defense is bringing it.
Yeah, for all the good things that we've seen the last 2 weeks, I don't think if you're the Panthers, and I know they won't, but maybe fans are starting to think maybe you've arrived or something. That's when trouble is right ahead.
No doubt.
I will say this. I feel like if they can jump on the Jets early, they will turn that crowd that's going to show up Sunday against them.
100%.
They're wanting a reason to boo the Jets right now.
Yep.
They're like, give me a reason to boo Justin Fields. Give me a reason to yell at Aaron Glenn. I think the longer you allow the Jets to hang around Sunday, if that's the case, I think you're asking for trouble. So this is a game, if you're the Panthers, you got to walk in there and punch them in the mouth early.
Yeah.
Because you feel like if you can get them down after the way things have gone so far, they may roll over.
And listen, Aaron Glenn has already got this question yesterday after the game.
And I thought it was a fair question, by the way.
I agree. And I think he's going to get it all week long.
Sure.
And for a rookie coach with not much experience, well, no experience as the head coach, but, learning as he goes, you can't tell me that if their offense is stuttering in the first quarter, going into the halftime, even the second quarter, I can't see him not putting Tyrod Taylor in there.
Yep.
And just seeing what happens. And to me as a Panther fan, that's what I want to see happen. If we make him pull fields, then our defense is doing the job.
I'll agree with you, but maybe that's not the best thing. Maybe
true.
The best thing is that Justin Fields stay in there if he's struggling, because that's sometimes those things backfire. But I hear what you're saying.
Taylor can definitely throw the ball better.
You're right, though. If they are having to go to Tyrod Taylor, that tells you the defense is having their way and things are going well for the Panthers.
Other thing I wanted to mention, too, about the Panthers offense, because, again, you do feel like Canales is now getting into a groove. Bryce is getting into a groove. They know where they can go with the ball, where each other's going to be. I mean, Tet yesterday on that drop, it was a great throw by Bryce, but you still feel like Tet turned a little too quick or whatever, but they're getting there. And like Canales said after the game, they practice those plays, and it takes time to get chemistry, and they're starting to get it. The play calling, you're starting to see them do what Canales has preached all along, which is we want to be a running football team, and then we need to take our shots. And look, the way they came out in the second half, where they hit Jimmy Horn Jr. Down the seam, which, by the way, they got to keep him active because the dude is fast. Yep. He gives them something they don't have on offense. But the way they came out in the second half looked like a team that, I complained the first 4 games of the year that this was a team that I felt was like they would dip their toe in the water and they'd see what it feels like. And then, it's too cold. Yeah. And that second half proved to me that they're going for the win here.
Well, it was funny because I don't know if you could hear, but Canales talked to Pam Oliver right before the third quarter started, and he talked about, we got to keep running the football. We're doing a pretty good job, but we want to keep at it. And first play, boom, they go deep to Jimmy Horn, and Olsen was like, as a coach, you got to say you got to keep running the ball. But he said, I love the fact they took a shot.
Me too.
Right out of the gate to start the second half.
Me too. And listen, with Canales, we would make fun of it sometimes because it's always. We're following the process. We're following the process.
Coach speak, yes.
And we're doing this, and the guys are going to believe in the process. And we're building a culture. And listen, all those things are crucial if you want to be a team that sustains success, like a Buffalo Bills or any of these things. Well, when you hear the players talk now after the game, when you hear Canales talk, when you see the way that they are making some adjustments during the game, when you see the fact that they are taking player input, which I think all the great coaches do that. It does feel like the building over there is different right now than it has been in quite some time, and there's some belief. And you're 3-3, or you're 3-3 now. You got a chance to go above 500. And listen to this stat: the Panthers yesterday, their offense was they had the second highest success rate of any team in a single game this season, and now they're 4th in offensive success rates in the NFL. Only behind the Colts, the Bills, and the Commanders. So, you're up there with some pretty good company. The Colts are one of the best teams in the NFL. Bills are as well. And the Commanders have been struggling through injuries, and still you can tell they're a pretty good football team. They got a big game tonight. But, I feel like all these things that Canales has been steadfast on saying, the things that he's learned working under Pete Carroll for all those years, and some of the great coaches that he coached with, it wasn't just coach speak. It was a game plan. Now, look, if they lose the Jets, we'll be out there Monday going,
all out the window.
Right. But still, it's just you do get the feeling that there's something different happening over there. It doesn't mean they're going to make the playoffs this year. It doesn't mean they're Super Bowl contenders. It just means that as a team that came from zero, and we see these building blocks, and we see a lot. And I got to give Dan Morgan a lot of credit, man, because he rebuilt the offensive line. It appears he's rebuilt the defensive line. Like you said, getting Derek Brown back was huge. But then even some of these free agents that he's touched on, Dowdle didn't have a big market. Cowboys didn't want him back.
Right.
And, all he's done here in the last 2 games is create a spark like we haven't had in quite some time. You see, even Pat Jones Jr. making some plays yesterday, the guy we brought in from Minnesota. And then you look at these draft picks, Tet obviously with his first 2 touchdowns in the NFL. Scorton on defense, I think, is going to be a dangerous player in time. He's starting to get it. Princely, like I said, on the early plays. We haven't seen as much of Ransom as I thought we would.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
On that. But I think, and Nick Scott yesterday, had the one play that he got beat, but then he also made a great pass breakup right in front of the end zone. So
he still can't tackle, but
tackle. But you see a lot of these guys that Dan has brought in. The misses are starting to be fewer and far between.
Yeah, and you just want to, as a fan, you want to feel like there's a plan. That there's something there that they look at. Go, all right, we're doing this really well. And DJ, you watch enough football. We've talked to enough guys that played the game. It's pretty simple. If you run the football and you stop the run, you got a pretty good damn chance to win a ball game. And that's right now. That's what the Panthers the last 2 weeks have been outstanding at. Running the football and stopping the other team from running the football, and that can take you a good ways if you can do that.
Well, especially on the road where this team has been abysmal.
Yes,
I mean Bryce.
They have yet to prove that they can take this on the road yet.
Exactly. I mean Bryce has one win in his career on the road. Yeah. We've seen what they've done this year on the road with losing to Jacksonville, losing to Arizona, getting whooped by the Patriots. Which, by the way, Patriots look to be pretty good. Drake May right now is playing. Probably one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the league right now. So that loss doesn't look quite as bad. But on the road now, they have to prove a point to us, and they're going to go into, like I said, a team that's in disarray, but they're still fighting, and that's where you have to lean on your run game and stop the run, no doubt.
Absolutely. And if I looked at the schedule, I believe you got the Jets this week, then the Saints, I want to say, and then you go to Green Bay.
I think we have the Bills after that.
Oh, that's right. You're right. It's Jets, Bills,
Packers.
At
home, at Packers.
So this game is huge Sunday, DJ, if you want to keep this momentum, because, look, let's be honest, you're not going to be favored to beat the Bills at home, even though you're at home.
Nope.
And you're not going to be favored to beat the Packers up at Lambeau. So this is the game you need to have.
Yeah.
You can't afford to lose this game Sunday.
Yeah, they're 3-3. They're in second place behind Tampa, who's playing great. If you want to look at the playoff picture this early, they're a game out of the playoffs right now. So you're right. They've got to get this W on Sunday because the schedule is not as kind after that with the Bills, at the Packers, home against the Saints, at the Falcons, at the 49ers, home against the Rams. That's
a gauntlet.
That's a gauntlet. So,
and we knew it. That's why when you looked at the first of the year, you knew you needed to make some hay. Okay, well, you're 3-3.
Yep.
I think there's no Panther fan out there. If I told you before the season started, going into week 7, you're going to be 3-3. You'd raise your hands and sign me up.
Everybody would have taken it.
Sign me up.
Yeah, totally agree with you. So we'll see if they can get this momentum they have to travel to New York for them. Because that's kind of the next hurdle that they have to hit is starting to be able to win on the road.
Right.
Because, they still have some big divisional games on the road with Tampa, Atlanta, and New Orleans. So it's great that we're doing this at home, especially when half the stadium is filled with Cowboy fans and it'll
be double that when the Bills come here in a couple weeks. It will feel like a road game.
No doubt. So they got to get this win, and they got to start getting with this momentum that they have to travel with them on the road. A couple other NFL games just to touch on. We mentioned Baker Mayfield and how good Tampa's playing, regardless of the injuries that they keep sustaining. He's playing at an elite level, and Tampa Bay's for real. Yeah,
and you mentioned injuries, man. That Fred Warner, God, that just breaks your heart, even though you're not a Niners fan. Yeah, he's such a great player.
Great player.
I think he's so respected around the league, and see him, end up with a broken ankle, dislocated ankle, and he knew it. Everybody knew it. They wouldn't even show it
right
replay.
Away. Yeah,
it was bad. That you just wonder how many hits can a team take injury-wise.
Yep.
And we saw this last year with the 49ers. It was the main reason they weren't in the playoffs, and they've been able to kind of navigate it so far. But, man, when you've now lost Nick Bosa and now you lose Fred Warner, who is the heartbeat of not only that defense, probably that team.
Yep.
That's going to be huge. But back to Tampa, I mean, I don't know. If you don't have Baker Mayfield in your top 2 or 3 in the MVP race right now, I don't know what you've been watching.
I don't either. Another team that's just impressing, and I thought that they were going to be a lot better because of a lot of the, they had the most money when it came to free agency, and they brought a lot of guys in. Drake May, we all thought was going to be the real deal, but he's playing a lot better than I thought he would this quick. Like I always thought Drake was going to be a really good quarterback, but he's playing an elite level right now. With when Butte has 2 touchdowns and hadn't done anything really.
And Stephon Diggs did nothing yesterday.
Exactly. So he's figuring out this NFL game, and Drake looks great. And I know there's a lot of fans here in Charlotte, including myself, who want to see him do well, just not if they play the Panthers, which he had a field day on. But those two teams, and then Kansas City last night against Detroit. Detroit's missing their secondary, so we knew that Kansas City should be able to score.
They could fight after the game, though. Brian Branch did a good job with that.
He did. That was something I hadn't seen in quite some time. That was a nice melee, and to Dan Campbell's credit, I don't know if you heard him after the game, but he said, "Look, I love Branch, but that we won't tolerate that here." Yep. So it'd be interesting to see what happens with that. I'm sure there'll be fines laid down.
You buying the Chiefs are back?
No, I'm not buying the Chiefs. Detroit was missing. Not
that they really ever left, but I think some people are ready to write them off.
Yeah, I think the Chiefs are still going to be in the playoff picture. I'm not saying that. Do I think they're a Super Bowl contender? I don't. I think Denver is better than them. The Chargers, we're talking about injuries, have sustained a lot of injuries that have hurt them, but they figured it.
It's October, Halloween, right around the corner. The Chiefs to me are Michael Myers. You think he's dead, but he's not dead. Yeah. I think that's the way you look at the Chiefs. You think they're when you have, and then come playoff time, there they are. They're going to be a problem again.
Well, they've got one of the best coaches in the NFL, in NFL history. You've got one of the top three, if not the best quarterback. You're right. They figured it out.
And you're going to get Rashee Rice back. They got Worthy back.
Yep.
Kelsey had his best game of the season last night.
Yep. But again, they'll be around. I mean, like I said, Detroit was missing three of their starting four in the secondary. So going into that game, you had a feeling that Kansas City was at least going to be able to score.
Yeah. I
just felt that, and a Kansas City defense, which just played really well this year. I thought Detroit would still be able to score more than they did.
Yeah, AFC's interesting. Buffalo still to me is the team to beat.
Mm-hmm.
The Colts, I think, are in that next category. I'm interested. Where would you put the Steelers? Right, I don't know what to make of the Steelers. I think
Frank has them.
They're 4-1. But I don't know how good they are.
Here's what I think. I think that, and Frank disagrees. Frank thinks they're the second best team in the NFL. I don't. I wouldn't even have them in my top five.
I would not,
because
put them there.
Their defense right now, the last three games, is playing like the defense that we thought they would be.
We're accustomed to seeing.
So defensively, I think they figured it out, and I do think they're probably one of the top 4 or 5 defenses in the league. Offensively, I just don't know if they have enough punch.
And this is crazy, but if they get into a game where Aaron Rodgers has to go win it for them, is he still capable of winning that type of game? Because you said defensively the last few weeks they've been outstanding.
Yep.
Now they played Cleveland yesterday. They beat the Vikings over in London the week before the bye, who were banged up. That's what I'm saying. I don't know. I really still don't know how good they are. I'm kind of with you, though, as defensively, if they play like that, they're at least going to be in a lot of games.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if there's a game where the offense has to go out there and win it. I don't know how I feel about that.
And look, it's not their fault, but the schedule makers have been kind to them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they've had the Jets and they've had the Browns. They had a banged up Minnesota team.
Yep.
So, they lost at home to Seattle, who, by the way, looks to be the real deal. Yep. Sam Darnold is having a hell of a year. But I do think and in their division, the Bengals without Burrow are not the same team. The Ravens are a mess. And then the Browns,
it's their division right now. It's Pittsburgh's division to lose.
Exactly. So they're going to be there. They're going to be around at the end. Yeah. So if they can keep everybody healthy, and I know Austin's been out, they'll get him back at some point, which is a weapon that I know Aaron Rodgers likes a lot. I just don't know. I'm with you. I'm just not sure when they play better competition. Yeah. We'll find out. I mean, but it's not going to be against their division opponents, because that division has, due to injuries, basically has taken a turn for the worse. Let's do a little college football this weekend. Like I mentioned, I was at the Penn State Northwestern game. First time I've ever been to Beaver Stadium.
At least you don't have to chip in to buy out, James Franklin's $49 million.
Tell you what, man, I should have, when I raised Dylan and Connor, I should have, from the time that they came home from the hospital, put football playbooks in their hand and told them,
yes,
you're going to be football coaches, because, man, if you
get a good agent, get a good agent,
because all you got to do is win at a couple places and then get to that one place where they're going to pay you $49 million to fire you.
Right.
And like I said, Penn State, the experience was great. Everything that everyone had told me about going to Penn State game was great. Now, Northwestern was winning pretty much the whole game. So I never got to see the fans at like everyone.
Saw angry fans.
I saw angry fans. There was people dressed up as Franklin as a clown, like literally, like a lot of them.
Yeah,
and
it's been ugly for him. And I even when they lost to Oregon, I think he got booed off the field.
Yep.
It's a good thing they didn't lose that game last week at home. He would have got booed off, but he got booed off again after the game Saturday. And you knew something was eventually going to happen. I just didn't know if they would pull the trigger, now.
I don't know what the math on it was. I thought, and I was with obviously a bunch of Penn State folks, and I thought that they probably would just let them finish the season because number one, it would make that buyout go down, and number two, your quarterback's out. Which, by the way, I Drew Allar. I hate that he got hurt. He seems to be a great kid. I don't think he's a great quarterback. I didn't think it last year. Yeah. It's funny watching their former backup quarterback over at Missouri, looking like the real deal. But let's rattle through some of these games this weekend in college football that I thought were pretty crazy. We'll start with one that I wish Frank was sitting here with us because, he's been telling me how great Oregon is and how bad Indiana is. I had Indiana as one of my picks last week, and he talked me out of it. And that's the first time he's ever made me change my mind. And, of course, Indiana goes in there. I love Cignetti, the Duke and coach. He's got swag.
And by the way, he's now being mentioned Penn State possibly.
Yeah, they're saying that it's probably going to be Matt Rule's job to lose.
Yeah, because he played there.
But they're also, I read something today that they may talk to Saban and see if he'll come out of retirement, or they may talk to. There's about 5 coaches listed.
Cignetti's in a really good spot. He's either going to get a ton of money from Indiana. They're going to fork up the money and find it somewhere, or somebody else will pay him. He'll have to make the decision. Does he want to leave? But there is going to be money out there, out the what for him.
No doubt.
Going into next year.
It's also going to be interesting to see with these college coaches after we saw, that he's getting $49 million to get fired. We saw what happened with in Texas A&M, Jimbo Fisher getting paid $1 gazillion when they fire him. Yep. It is going to be interesting to see if these colleges now start going, you know what, we're not doing that anymore. We're going to pay you to coach. And if we fire you, you're going to get the same severance that whatever it is. I just can't. That model doesn't work, and there's no way in hell that these colleges are going to continue to give these guys these huge buyouts if they're not doing what they're paid to do.
And look, my wife's a huge Wisconsin fan, Wisconsin grad, and Luke Fickell has been a disaster. Mm-hmm. She's just waiting on the news
which
that he's been fired.
Me, by the way.
They got embarrassed again at home Saturday night. His buyout is $25 million.
Yep.
Half of what James Franklin's is.
Yep.
We saw Virginia Tech fire their coach. We saw UCLA fire Deshaun Foster. We saw UAB fire Trent Dilfer yesterday. These schools aren't waiting around, but you're right. I don't know how much longer you're going to see these crazy buyouts, but that brings me back to what I said a minute ago about agents. And I heard Rick Neuheisel this morning talking about the great job Jimmy Sexton did when Jimbo Fisher got fired, or maybe it was Gus Malzahn. When Gus Malzahn got fired at Auburn, within 30 days, he was owed $10 million.
Yep. Because
Jimmy Sexton had negotiated that when they signed him to that contract. So it's crazy. And Neuheisel also talked about the game, Oregon and Indiana. He was there Saturday, and he said the one thing that shocked him, he thought Oregon's speed would be the difference.
Yeah.
He didn't think Indiana defensively could match Oregon's offense speed-wise.
I agree.
And he said they did. That defense was legit on Saturday.
It was, man. And so now Oregon loses their first game of the year. Indiana just keeps on rocking. And like I said, I'm a believer in Cignetti. I love everything.
How can you not be?
Exactly. I love everything about him. Oklahoma, Texas. Oklahoma, Mateer comes back, still banged up, but he comes back and says he's playing, does play. We've been waiting to see Texas play like the preseason top 5 team that they were, and we have not seen it at all. But their defense brought it this game, and we saw Manning make some good plays. I mean, there's people out there that say, "Oh, Manning's overrated. Manning sucks," and I just keep saying he's young. He's got to get experience, and it takes time, and especially when you're playing at Ohio State, when you're playing at Florida, and then obviously in the Red River rivalry against Oklahoma. But this to me was his best game in college, and I thought he didn't turn the ball over, which has been a huge deal. He made some great throws when he had to. I'm still not buying stock in Texas because I still think that they're probably just a good football team. But I was really surprised that Oklahoma laid the egg they laid.
Yeah, look, and you mentioned Mateer coming off the hand injury. He looked a little rusty, even though he only missed a game or two. Three picks, I believe.
Yep.
But yeah, that's the best we've seen Arch look. And you saw him after the game in the interview. He almost looked like a sigh of relief. Like, finally, I got to show thee that I can play the position. And I think the worst thing that happened to him was the Paul Feinbaums of the world and everybody anointing him, say he's the greatest prospect ever, and all that. And it obviously have the last name Manning. The pressure is there to come out and look like an overall number one type of draft pick player. But maybe this settles him in a little bit, getting a win like this in a game like that, and we'll see how he does the rest of the season.
Texas A&M at home against Florida, and I've been singing the praises of Texas A&M all year. I love Elko. I think he's a great coach. He's another name that's been mentioned with Penn State. Florida will probably be another job opening by the end of the year. But they're playing hard. Their defense is legit. Offensively is where they seem to struggle. But Texas A&M has playmakers everywhere. We saw it against Notre Dame, where and Notre Dame's defense has certainly not been what we thought it would be this year. But Texas A&M has speed everywhere. They got a quarterback that not only can throw it, he can run it, and they've got a defense that can play. They're for real. Yeah,
and you mentioned the playmakers they have, and as a State fan, obviously I'm familiar with Casey Concepcion, who transferred there from NC State, and they are using him like I wished NC State had tried to use him. I didn't think they used him enough. You don't even have to throw the ball to him. Just get the ball in his hand somehow. Let him make something. Now he did get a little dinged up the other night with a hamstring. He did come back, I believe. But yeah, they're legit. And you knew Elko going there felt like a good fit. We saw the job he did at Duke. Yep. And they're a dangerous team. And that was a good one. Yeah, Florida. You can say what you want, about Billy Napier, and you're right. I do think that job will be open after the season. But they have continued to play hard. No doubt. For all the noise around that program. They're still playing hard, but that was a good win for them. Yeah, they've been in Florida. You're right. Haven't quit, and they've been in most games. Two more college games I want to talk to, and then we'll look ahead to this weekend. South Carolina goes to LSU. South Carolina in somewhat of a revenge game. The refs kind of screwed them last year. Yes, they sure did. Which cost them the playoffs. So they go to LSU. A tight game for the most part, and then LSU kind of took over towards the end, and also covered the spread. South Carolina's schedule doesn't get any easier, so I think this season's going to be one that a lot of Gamecock fans are going to want to forget. Yeah, it hasn't gone like I think a lot of people thought. We talked about the hype could around Arch Manning. There was hype around Norris Sellers too, DJ. I mean, 100%. He was a guy that a lot of people thought could be in New York for the Heisman presentation. It hasn't happened yet. It's just and look, LSU at night, that's a tough place to play. I'm not saying that's no stretch of the imagination, a bad loss for South Carolina. They just struggle against LSU. They can't beat them. It doesn't matter where you play them. But Norris Sellers thing, it hasn't clicked the way I think a lot of people thought coming into this season. He had a chance to be one of the the best players in college football. Yeah, and listen, he turned down a lot more money to go to bigger schools to stay at South Carolina. And like I said, the season's not going the way they want to. Those same schools are going to be coming back to him with bigger checks. It's going to be interesting to see what he does. Last game before we look at some of the big ones this weekend. This game surprised me, and it shouldn't have, because when I saw the spread, I said that's a weird spread for this game. Southern Cal was a 2.5-point favorite at home against Michigan. I'm not sold on either team, but I did think Michigan, had played Oklahoma, and even though they lost, their defense played well. Michigan can run the ball with Haynes, is one of the better running backs in the country, and Southern Cal just took it to them. When you look at these, when you think of these two schools, I think you think Michigan, physical, Big Ten, trenches, run the ball and all that. Yep. USC, finesse, throw the ball down the field, gadget plays and all that stuff. Yep. DJ, USC out physical Michigan Saturday night. They were just a better football team on the line of scrimmage. It wasn't tricky. It wasn't anything flashy. It wasn't any fluky. It was just they lined up and beat them. They did. And that was impressive. And, that's got to be demoralizing if you're Michigan to go out to the Coliseum and get your lunch handed to them like you did. They did. And, look, Underwood – number one quarterback recruit, goes to LSU or commits to LSU, cancels. They give him a ton of money to go to Michigan. The kid has 10 touchdown passes this year. So you see the talent with him. You see the size. You see his athleticism. But
he is yet to have a game where you go, okay, that's why he was the guy.
And I even tweeted this out Saturday night. Who would have thought before the season started, or even 3 weeks into the season, now that USC UCLA game when it's down the road still, but that's shaping up to be a hell of a game because both those schools are playing good football. UCLA, the light went off when they beat Penn State. Rick Neuheisel's kid is called to play. He's doing a great job.
I mean, he's gonna listen. He's
gonna be a head coach probably.
That's what I was gonna say. I mean, somebody's gonna hire him. He'll be a head coach somewhere next year. Excuse me. It's only been 2 games of data, but what we've seen in those 2 games, when you saw what you saw in the games before that, is night and day. So I agree. But Southern Cal is going to have a much bigger game before that.
Yes.
And that's at South Bend, Indiana this week when they travel to Notre Dame. Notre Dame currently is an 8.5-point favorite. Notre Dame beat NC State in a game that was close for the first half, and then Notre Dame kind of took over in the second half. But Southern Cal now takes that momentum from a big win against Michigan, comes into Notre Dame. Obviously, this is one of the biggest rivalries in the history of football, college football. Notre Dame, offensively, I've said this all year long. I love CJ Carr. I think the kid's going to be a great football player. Obviously, they've got 2 great running backs. Jeremiah Love will probably be the first running back taken in the draft. Their defense, to me, this year has been what's been disappointing. They just haven't had the ability to make a big stop, it seems, in these big games, especially with Texas A&M and Miami. But they do seem to be getting it going. Now, you have to look at who they play. They've NC State, Boise State, and I forget the game before that, Purdue.
Yeah.
So they haven't played anybody that that tested them like a Miami or a Texas A&M. But at home against Southern Cal, I think Notre Dame gets this done. We'll break all this down Friday too, but I'm excited about that game.
No, that's it'll be a good litmus test to find out. Yeah, is Notre Dame's defense really back and legit? Because even State Saturday, they made a big play in the first half. Terrell Anderson, their best receiver, got downfield. Now he got hurt, didn't play the second half, and they completely locked State down after that. State couldn't do anything. But this will be a good test for Notre Dame, particularly defense. But offensively, man, I'm with you. Carr's playing lights out. Those 2 backs are studs. This should be a hell of a game when it comes Saturday night.
That'll be Saturday night. And then 3:30, another big game coming up this weekend, Ole Miss at Georgia. Ole Miss comes in undefeated. Georgia squeaks by on the road against Auburn, ends up winning by, I believe, 10 points.
Officiating was horrific for both sides of that game.
I didn't see that game, but I heard and read a bunch about that. Georgia at this time is a 7.5-point favorite. This is the kind of game throughout Lane Kiffin's career, Ole Miss, they haven't had that signature road win against Georgia on the road. This would be such a huge win, not only for their program, but for their playoff chances this year. And I love what Lane Kiffin does there. I mean, he can rub people the wrong way, but I love what he does, and I buy Lane Kiffin, and I think Ole Miss is good, but man, I think Georgia at home is just a bear. We just saw them lose already at home to Alabama this year.
Yeah, that's why I don't think they're going to lose again at home.
I agree.
It's one thing, and they led that game at the half against Bama.
Yep.
And Bama didn't even Bama led the half.
Yeah.
Bama didn't even score in the second half. They still won that game. I can't see Georgia lose it at home twice in 1 year. So I right now, my lean would be towards Georgia, but don't think that Lane Kiffin doesn't think he can walk in there and win that game.
No doubt. And listen, that's the thing. Ole Miss is not going to walk in there scared.
Nope.
They're not going to walk in there with a lack of confidence. Lane Kiffin, has as much swag and arrogance as anybody in college football. So I think, this isn't going to be a game where Georgia rolls over them. But I think at the end of the game, Georgia's going to have enough to get it done. Tennessee at Alabama, another night game on Saturday. Tennessee, 1 loss at home against Georgia, a game that was great, back and forth, a lot of scoring
year so far.
No question about it. Alabama, after losing the first game to Florida State, has definitely gotten stuff figured out. The big win at Georgia we just mentioned. They went on the road again this weekend, and in a tough fought game. They beat Vandy at home, and Vandy's a scrappy, tough team. So Alabama seems to have gotten it figured out. Tennessee comes to Alabama. Tennessee can score points. Their quarterback does throw the ball around quite a bit. I think last year at App State, even he had 20 plus interceptions. Yeah,
he will make some great plays, but he can make some throws that get you angry as a fan as well.
No doubt. But I think 9.5 is a lot of points, man. I think Tennessee, because they can score, And they have, obviously they're solid on defense, but I think the key to that game is going to be Alabama running the ball. And listen, Alabama's quarterback, I said it the first few weeks, I didn't know enough about him. When I watched them play Florida State, nothing really stood out to me. But every game since then that I've watched, first of all, the kid's got a laser gun as an arm. He has great poise, moxie, all the things that they say about good quarterbacks. He's got himself now into the Heisman running. But I think the running game, since Alabama got their running back after the third game,
right.
I think that's been a difference maker. And I think it opens things up for the offense. And so I think Alabama wins. Man, 9.5 is a lot of points.
It is. And their passing game right now, I don't feel like it's clicking on all cylinders. Bernard and Ryan Williams particularly has been kind of disappointing.
I agree.
He didn't do much the other night, but third Saturday in October, it's always good. Tennessee, Alabama.
Yep.
And I'm curious to see Joey Aguilar on the road in a very tough environment. He can sling it, but yeah, he will make a throw or two, and it may end up costing him if it's a bad throw.
LSU, we just talked about with the big win over South Carolina. They go to Vandy, and again, Vandy is one of those.
Vandy's favored in that game.
I know, which is crazy.
Yeah. You heard me correctly. Vanderbilt is favored over LSU.
And listen, I'm a fan of Vandy. I'm a fan of what they do. I'm a fan of their quarterback.
He's got some. You talk about moxie.
Yeah,
he's got a little bit.
I mean, no doubt. And look, they're scrappy and they fight. And so when you go to play them, whether it's in Vandy or not, I mean, listen, I'm not sitting here making it sound like Vandy is like going to play at the big house.
Yeah. And even as good as they're playing, DJ, you figure LSU still probably going to have as many, if not more, fans in Nashville than Vanderbilt fans.
No doubt. And yeah, and Vandy is a 2.5 point favorite. LSU struggles on the road a little bit. They've already lost on the road to Ole Miss. They
did win at Clemson.
They squeaked out a win at Clemson, which doesn't look nearly as good now as it did, although Clemson seems to have maybe figured some things out against lesser competition. They're not going to play North Carolina every week. I know they wish they were Boston College. But I'm excited about that game too, because like I said, I love the way Vandy plays. LSU really, I don't want to say can't lose another game, but you got to think they can't lose this game because they still have a lot of tough teams to play. But that's a game I'm pumped up about. And then the last two that I'm really excited about, and this game people are going to go, why are you excited about this? Texas Tech at Arizona State. I've been on this Texas Tech train since game one of the season. I think I've picked them every week to cover, and I think I've covered all but maybe one. We're used to these Texas Tech teams that can score a lot of points, but they can't play any defense. Well, this Texas Tech team can score a lot of points, and they play pretty good defense. So Arizona State not having the year that they wanted coming off the playoffs last year, but they still have a great coach. They still have Levitt at quarterback. And
was hurt, didn't play this past week. You mentioned the Texas Tech, their quarterback got hurt this past Saturday. So that'll be interesting to see which of these quarterbacks is healthy enough to play Saturday.
No question. But if they both play, which I hope they do, I think that's going to be a fun game. And then this one is a game that, we probably normally would never think we're going to talk about it. But all these two teams have done is play great football. And that's going to be Georgia Tech at Duke. And again, normally that's not a game we would talk a lot about or be excited about, but Georgia Tech comes in undefeated. Again, you talk about quarterbacks who I love. They've got one.
King,
King's great. I love their coach. And then Duke just seems to keep winning. I mean, they lost a tough one at home against Illinois earlier in the season.
That State game felt like it got them rolling.
Yeah.
And remember, State had control of that game in the first half.
Yep.
And then right before halftime, everything changed.
Yep.
And Duke took control of that game, and they really haven't looked back since.
Nah, man. And look, they've got a great quarterback that they brought in from Tulane. So that should be a fun game to watch. I still, Duke's favored by 2.5 right now. I still would have to take Georgia Tech only because I feel like they're undefeated. They haven't lost, and the way they play, they're just in the game. But that's a great matchup, and if Duke can pull that one off, that'll be a big one for them. Let's finish by talking about your boys real quick, NC State, because we were talking about coaches getting fired, and we're talking about things like that. State with a disappointing loss at Notre Dame, although that would have been a huge win if you got it. No one expected really for them to go get that. But when you look at the rest of the season, and what
we have to.
Well, you got Carolina still.
Well, that's the one game, DJ. I think they're capable of winning.
Yeah.
The rest of that schedule, because I don't see another win on there. I really don't. They have a bye this week, and then I think it's in not any particular order: Georgia Tech, Florida State, Miami, Carolina.
Yep.
Well, they're not beating those other 3 teams. Carolina's the one game at the end of the year I think they can win.
Yep.
But look, the loss at home to Virginia Tech is inexcusable for Dave Doeren. I just think we've reached that point where it's just time for a fresh voice, for a fresh freshen up of this program. I think Dave Doeren has done all he can do there. And my biggest problem with Dave Doeren, for all the good talent that he's put in the NFL, why has that talent not parlayed in the ACC?
Fair question.
He has struggled in conference games. They haven't sniffed playing in an ACC championship game. And I just think there comes a point, and we see it. You see it a lot of times. You get to the point where it's time to make a change. I go back to, I know the situation you're familiar with, Bobby Lutz here in Charlotte with the 49ers in basketball.
Yep.
It just got to the point where it was time for
a new
voice, time for a change. And I think that's what they've reached in Raleigh. I don't see Dave Doeren taking this any further than it's gotten to this point. And there's going to be a lot of coaches out there. How much is NC State willing to pay to get some of these guys? But I think at the end of the year, it needs to happen.
Are there any names that you've read about being floated out there yet?
I have not seen names, but Dave Doeren's name obviously is one that people are talking about. Could this be
on the
end
hot
of
seat
the line for him? Yeah.
There could be another 7 or 8 good jobs available between Arkansas, NC State, Florida. There's a 3, but obviously Penn State we just talked about, and there's several more that could be available. UCLA, that'll be interesting to see what names are floated out there. With the Penn State game again, a lot of people are saying it's Matt Rule's job to lose. Say what you want to about Matt Rule, but in college, and he's shown that he can win, and he has Nebraska on the right track. So that would be a bad loss for Nebraska. But they're mentioning him, Elko, Saban, Vandy's coach. So they're starting to put their list together.
And back to State for 1 second, DJ. Look, we saw Boo Corrigan decide this when it came to basketball. They pushed all their chips in, went and got Will Wade, NIL. Nothing was, that whatever it took to get him, they did it.
Yep. Great.
Are they willing to do the same thing for football? I don't know. That's the question, because it's going to take some money. Again, if you want to part ways with Dave Doeren, you better have a plan in place to bring somebody in you feel like it's going to get the job. It's probably going to cost you, but how much are you willing to put all your chips in for football like you did for basketball?
Well, look, now's the time to do it, because, you just look in state and the Tar Heels are in disarray and no one knows what's going to happen over there. Duke is a very good football
Duke's
program.
The best team in the triangle right now.
Exactly. So if you want to try to make a run and at a coach and get NC State back on the right track, now's the perfect time to do it. And I do agree. I think that, I don't think Doran's a bad coach. I just think that it's time for a new voice there. So we'll see what happens with that. Unfortunately, or fortunately, if you're a fan of a certain team, these next 6 weeks, I'm sure we're going to, Franklin's not the first fall.
No, he won't be the last.
Of a big school. He won't be the last. So bunch of great games this weekend. Friday, we'll go through those. Panthers at the Jets. Their first chance to get above 500 for the first time, I believe, in 5 years. I think that's correct. They haven't won on the road. Bryce Young only one win on the road. So that's, they've been kind of jumping these little hurdles here and making improvement. That's a hurdle they've got to get over if they're going to make it to the playoffs or at least be in the run for it. But we'll be excited about that. We'll break that down Friday as well. Everybody have a great week. Thank you for watching. We'll see you Friday.